That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
In honor of Black History Month, we like to showcase the great Black contributions to the pop cultural landscape as we know it.
This year, we'll be celebrating the milestones, heroes, and artistry depicting the Black experience.
So, without further delay, let's explore the history of Kid Cudi's Entergalatic on Black History Heroes. Oh boy, Dragon, today is like one of my rare opportunities where my nerdum for very, very particular rap artists, which in this situation, it's Dragon, I gotta say, it's like I've talked about my love of Kendrick Lamar a little bit on this show before from time to time. And Kid Cudi is the other big one for me. So I'm a happy Tiki. I'm a happy David Hyde Pierce Skeen. You know, like we are going through something right now where I'm just going to get to showcase like a side of my fandom that I don't usually get to showcase, and it's going to be cool. Speaking of which, Dragon, well, let's wait on that. Sorry, I'm just kind of a little mixed up here. Let me I'm just gonna add, just for simplicity's sake here. There we go. Now that they're in the same folder. So, Dragon, I will get into this film as a Kid Cudi fan. You're obviously approaching this. I'm assuming you're pretty much know next to nothing about Kid Cudi.
Yeah, like I may have heard the name before. It's about it.
Fair enough. So, what did you think about this film?
Well, yeah,
blind watch.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I went into the. I had this was somewhat on my radar. I always meant to look into this because I had a curiosity about it. You know, because it's kind of a rom-com meets Spider-Verse. But look, at least in design, at least in kind of the sell of it. I know it's not purely rom-com, but it's very much kind of in the vein of like the romantic film. I love it as I love it as this as kind of an experiment for the medium of animation. I love that we're tackling romance and kind of jobs in the creative arts, and it's very real. It's really genuine about it. We avoid a lot of the tropes, and we kind of steer into kind of the bigger emotions and kind of underlining fears that play within the tropes, which I thought was kind of smart. Take some interesting turns with it. I was impressed and I was sucked in. It does. I will admit, it does feel like there is kind of the separation between show and movie, which was kind of in the development of it, and you can kind of tell with the chapter separations, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just I guess overall it's that I think with this film kind of lacks in narrative and makes up for in execution, because I'm in love with what the execution is. It's I do that I think but I love the angles we have on so many of these shots here, and again it's just kind of taking like the kind of Spider-Verse kind of like kind of one could say broke new ground. It really kind of I kind of woke up the industry, like, look at what we can do. And I guess overall, what I'm saying is, I love that we're able to, we're finally there. We can actually do a movie about, like kind of a very achievable live action kind of thing in animation, where it's a romance film, it's a love story. The fact that we're doing like a very straightforward love story in animation, using the medium to make it as visually interesting and kind of and just kind of like enticing, so much more and more memorable by that metric than it would be just if this were in live action. I feel would be far more just kind of like like, okay, it's the live action kind of rom com that had pretty solid music. That's pretty much all we would say about if it were in live action. It'd be like, okay, well, this isn't nearly as fascinating as it would be, really diving into kind of the artistic expression, kind of the combination of music and visuals to go along with said music. So I don't know, it feels a lot more personal and feels a lot more interesting the way it is presented here.
Totally. All right. So yeah, it's interesting, Dragon, because it's almost kind of hard for me to give my thoughts about this movie without getting into my background on Cudi himself, because This movie is very much an artistic statement, specifically about Cudi's entire career up until this point, which I have more to say about the background just on like being a fan of Cudi's music and his evolution as an artist than I do on this movie. Because really, Dragon, the pitch for this movie was very simple in this series. Like you said, it was originally supposed to be a live action series, actually. And you were right, Dragon. They had the instinct to be like, wait a minute, especially after Spider-Verse came out, that was kind of the turning point of like, wait, we could do something a lot more visually expressive here with animation, and that's kind of like how it all came about. But yeah, Dragon, I think this is a really solid artistic statement for sure. I don't think it's like compulsively watchable. I will say, from a music side of things, it's not one of my favorite Cudi albums, like from a music point of view, but that's all pretty subjective. I think the romance here is pretty standard. I think that the characters aren't really that well defined, if I'm being totally honest. We do have some fun cameos, specifically Macaulay Culkin in a very memorable one scene role here. But what I really do like about this, Dragon, is just the artistic statement of it all, and specifically for the Black history of it all. I really think this is a great kind of encapsulation of Black romance in this modern time, which I guess we should get into it now, folks. So for Black History Month this year, because Black History Heroes, we kind of like, when we started Black History Heroes, we were more kind of taking that title literally. So like, year one, it was like Black Marvel characters. Year two was Black DC characters. That might be reversed, but it's something like that, so we were kind of going about like Black superheroes is the theme, but we kind of had to get more broad with it because eventually we sort of ran out of those types of characters. And this year, I feel like we're kind of on the trend of. I honestly wouldn't mind if this stuck around as like just our kind of go-to for Black History Heroes going forward is just contemporary Black cinema or Black cinema in general. It doesn't always have to be contemporary, but I feel like this specifically kind of like sets the stage and the tone for like, just contemporary romance in general, but specifically through a Black lens. And I think it's a very worthy endeavor on our part. But Dragon, let's get our disclaimer out of the way first.
So, for those of you who may not be aware, I hate to break your hearts if you did not know this ahead of time. It's time for the talk. So Tiki and I, despite our very our mastery of the street lingo, Tiki and I are highly unqualified to talk about the matter of race relations or anything adjacent to that. Tiki and I are we're the whitest men on the internet. We can't jump, unlike Woody Harrelson. We can't do it. Just the best way to express that is this image before. This is our mascot. You may recognize him from Frasier. This is David Hyde Pierce, the actor who played Niles. David Hyde Pierce skiing in an all-white ski suit down a ski slope, snowy white ski slope in the middle of a blizzard, aka rabbit in a snowstorm. That's pretty much what you're seeing here. That's Tiki and I. I got to be honest with this one. Part of me was tempted. Obviously, we have a kind of our we always use David Hyde Pierce skiing to represent ourselves here, but in this case, a part of me was thinking like Drix dancing in the nightclub.
Right. Oh God.
Essentially the fake, the fake germ that's frozen on top of his head, that essentially would be kind of like an afro of sorts.
Of sorts, yes.
Anyway, but yes, so Tiki and I, just in case what right do they have? We absolutely have no right. We barely know what we're talking about, but we're giving it a shot. We have thoughts. We're not proclaiming to be the most insightful thoughts, but we have thoughts.
Well said, Dragon. Well said. All right. Okay, so yeah, so basically, like I said, I'm gonna take this through like as a fan of Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi. So Dragon, this guy got famous off the backs of two very successful concept albums called The Man on the Moon and then The Man on the Moon 2. And Dragon, do you know what the subtitle of The Man on the Moon 2 was called? Because it's actually pretty important to this movie.
Was it I Really Like Andy Kaufman?
No. Oh God. It was called The Man on the Moon 2, The Legend of Mr. Rager.
Oh.
So Mr. Rager Dragon, like essentially like watching this movie, it's basically like, okay, like this is essentially what it would be like if we legitimized like the whole plot line of Jay and Silent Bob trying to write a Blunt Man and Chronic comic book, right?
Yeah.
Or a movie, because they had the comic. But so yeah, Mr. Rager was like this. So Man on the Moon 1 was more kind of like autobiographical, right? It was more about like Scott Mescudi growing up. Kid Cudi's whole thing is he's always kind of felt out of place within the Black community. I don't necessarily think that actually gets touched on too much in this movie. It's explored a little bit, but essentially Dragon, Kid Cudi is, by and large a Black nerd, by all intents and purposes, more on the artistic side of nerdom than, your Andre Meadows types who are just like a little too nerdy for their own good sometimes. This guy's more kind of like an art and culture nerd, if you will. And so his first album was all about kind of that growing up in the in the Black community, surrounded by people that just didn't understand him, kind of having a little bit of a Peter Pan syndrome about himself, not really having the proper channels to grow up, so kind of becoming like a little bit lost in like cartoons and stuff. Very relatable backstory for me personally. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate him so much as an artist, is that he's able to kind of like, cross those sort of cultural lines. Like anyone can relate to that kind of stuff, I think. Man on the Moon 2, though, The Legend of Mr. Rager, that's where he does come out with his alter ego, the Mr. Rager character, which is basically what you see in this movie. Dragon is this kind of like dark, sort of like anti-capitalist icon, if you will, who's wanting to take the system and tear it down. And so those two sides of himself, like the man on the moon and then Mr. Rager, they kind of became his trademark. So enter his third album, which was called Speeding Bullet to Heaven. And the 2 in that title is the number 2. Speeding Bullet to Heaven is kind of like an infamous release in the music community at large. I personally really like it. It was Kid Cudi's, essentially his attempt to branch off into what he really wanted to do with music, which wasn't so much hip hop or rap or R&B, but more so specifically punk rock. And so Speeding Bullet to Heaven, like I said, I think it's an album that is aged a lot better than the reception it had when it first came out. Because when it first came out, like hip hop and rap and like rock had not had the same sort of crossover appeal that it does now. And nowadays, I almost think you can look at an album like Speeding Bullet to Heaven and really kind of appreciate it for sort of breaking that ground and getting us into a place where those two genres can kind of coexist a little bit more. Anthony Fantano, Dragon, the internet's busiest music nerd. I'm not sure if you're aware of who that is, but he gave Speeding Bullet to Heaven just an infamously scathing review. Anyways, Speeding Bullet to Heaven was a little bit of a roadblock in Kid Cudi's career. And at this point, he was also doing some stuff like taking roles in, he played a side character in X, the first in the Pearl trilogy. And, but to revitalize his music career, he really did get into the idea of doing something that's, the mixed multimedia. That's one of the things that really fascinated him. Obviously, like I said, his whole life, he was kind of like an art snob, if you will, like an art nerd. So, he was into the idea of like kind of like revitalizing his career in terms of music. He didn't want to just go back into, he eventually did make a Man on the Moon 3. It was fine. It was one of those like, like the third in a trilogy where it's like, okay, you just kind of made it just to make it at that point. But he really wanted to do something that was different, that wasn't just Man on the Moon, which was essentially just autobiographical hip hop with some rock flourishes. He obviously couldn't do something like Speeding Bullet to Heaven again, because for as good as Speeding Bullet Bullet to Heaven is as an album nowadays, the reception of it kind of killed his career almost. So he decided to go that R&B route, that kind of like, you know, the very sensual sort of like lyrical quality. And that is what the music in Intergalactic kind of turned into. So that mixed with the idea of having this kind of like, you know, like modern day black relationship on screen. Like I said, it started as live action, but then Spider-Verse kind of opened the doors and like, oh no, like we can do something far more creative. And yeah, that's my little autobiographical on autobiography on Kid Cudi's discography and how it all led to this movie. So I hope it wasn't too drawn out and nerdy, Dragon. I apologize. I hope you learned something today.
Well, I did, but so you're going to tell them about the movie specifically, or?
Well, like I said, it was like just specifically with the movie. It is just kind of like one of those things where they had it in their mind from very early on. Like what you kind of said already is just like the, you know, it was an episodic thing. They kind of filmed it as an episodic thing, but then when they saw it all stitched together, they realized that it could be a movie. Netflix was going to release it as a series, but Netflix ultimately made the call to release it as a movie. So yeah, it all came together that way. I'm sorry, Dragon. I there's honestly not a lot out there about the production of this movie beyond just the album stuff. So that's why I'm so
Right.
intertwined into the album itself, because this really is a mixed multimedia project. Like I think the album in this situation is almost equally as important as the movie itself, because really at the end of the day, the movie itself, like it has a loose story, it has some loose characters, you know.
Mostly to promote an album, though. It's mostly to promote Kid Cudi.
Well, I was gonna say it's not even just like a cynical promotional vehicle, but it is by and large a collection of music videos, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there's a loose narrative to it.
I mean, the two things we might want to just kind of mention. I mean, the animation studio.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe it's DNEG, if I'm saying that right. Mm-hmm. These guys, they've done effects for a lot of movies, but also they've breached into animated films recently. So, for example, they did. I don't think they were the sole studio on it, but they did Garfield. They're working on the new Cat in the Hat movie. And, you know, they get sometimes they've done VFX for a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know if they did like the brief animated sequence or other effects in the, you know, in the Let There Be Carnage, but, you know, stuff like that. Some of them, actually, Nolan's used the studio a lot. This is kind of here's the thing. It's a London-based studio that I think in later years, like I think post, you know, Nolan started using for Inception stuff. They then become fused with an Indian studio. So it's kind of an English Indian kind of, VFX and just kind of animation studios. It's kind of taken off since then. This is, I want to say this is like a big feather in their cap for really kind of, you know, going into something really stylistic. I want to say. Now, I don't know how this new Cat in the Hat movie is going to look, but you know,
I mean, Cat in the Hat is kind of a good opportunity to get it something a little bit more stylistically bold.
Yeah. Also, Kenya Barris, you know, from Blackish, he was, you know, was kind of the co-developer of this.
That's right. That's right. For sure.
Now, if I'm wrong, and one of you can correct me if I'm wrong here, doesn't Kid Cudi do the voice of Jabari?
He did.
Is that right?
He does,
okay, yeah. Good.
Jabari, by and large, is essentially like, I'm honestly surprised they didn't just call this character Scott, because he really is just Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, from a character point of view, I mean, this movie's fine from a character point of view, but it really is about the animation more than anything else, and the music.
Right.
Characters, I think, are kind of like a distant third place in terms of like importance here.
All right.
Well,
go on.
Go ahead and start us off.
All right. So overall, so our chapters and kind of our episodes, you know, kind of in the series of events here. So although basically it's kind of like themed to, you know, kind of the arc and the blossoming of a relationship and just kind of where it goes. And it's very much kind of like in how you seed kind of a meaningful relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like the first chapter, just overall, like just breaking down, it's over like so we have just to list out the ones we have: Dog Whistle, Bright Light White, Secret Spot, Punan. It was Yellow, And I believe the last one is the last one is the best one. Do it on purpose. So that's the thing. So if you break these down, it's kind of like the dog whistle is the Bachelor era. Because dog whistle basically fundamentally boils down to Jabari and his buddies kind of talking about like the dog whistle of success to women. It's like then you're hearing from everyone you've ever known who now knows you're successful. Now they want a piece.
Yeah, and we have a lot of Timothy Chalamet as the drug dealer friend in this section, which is a fun casting choice.
Yeah, it's basically Chalamet saying, "Man, I should have been in Breaking Bad."
Basically, yes. It's like Chalamet trying to do his best Jesse Pinkman.
It's like they made me Willy Wonka. They can't let me be Jesse Pinkman. Really? I could have had that role.
Oh god. But I love the meet cute that goes down to the beginning here with the statue on the elevator.
Yeah, that's the thing. So something else
It's
to
very
mention.
realistic meet cute because like we don't linger on it really. It's not like a love at first sight sort of thing. It's just kind of like a kind of an event to make someone kind of stick in another person's mind, not even in a good or bad way, just in a memorable kind of way.
Now, if memory serves, in the making of this film, one of the influences was a combination of a movie that we talked about. It was I Lost My Hand. The Netflix. I don't know if it was actually specifically Netflix, but Netflix ended up airing it. But you remember, like the hand that was separated from the body. It was like a French film that was then dubbed.
I do not remember that. I'm sorry.
But you don't remember the movie at all?
No.
Oh.
I Lost My Hand?
Yeah, I lost my hand. Or like the hand got separated from the body, and we did a whole.
So it was like an Adams Family thing kind of situation.
Well, essentially, it was like it wasn't little. Again, the artistic expression was like the hand is trying to make its way back to the body, and we learn how the hand got separated, and the whole.
Dragon, I'm sorry, I do not remember this movie at all. I'm sorry.
Actually, wait. So, yeah, I lost. Yeah, sorry, I lost my body. That's what it's called. What about that?
Oh, I lost my. That sounds more familiar.
Well, really, just the title. You don't remember the premise at all with the hand being separated. Just okay. Well, fine. I lost my body. Nothing.
Okay, no, I just Googled it. Yeah, no. I remember it now. It's
Okay, so point being, so it's crossed with that.
I can see how this would be an influence for sure.
So it's kind of that crossed with
wise.
So it's that crossed with Harry Met Sally.
Sure.
That was kind of the grounding principle, from what I understand, in the making of the movie. Like they kind of wanted to have that vibe, kind of the artistic expression of "I lost my body," and kind of the kind of the fun kind of call out rom com that is When Harry Met Sally.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, it's like we have a very unromantic. They're introduced via the elevator, which also later on we use as like the great separate. When they're at their low of lows and they kind of separate, they meet each other on the elevator, they lose each other on the elevator, kind of.
Mm.
Yeah. By the way, I love that we address like, he's got a really sweet apartment now.
Specifically a bachelor pad, and because he's a bachelor, that's kind of like a little bit of a point of tension there.
So I guess art style, just with the way in which we express a lot of stuff in this movie, it's kind of really clever in that he's the premise is we have Kid Cudi's self insert here, Jabari. Jabari is like a graffiti artist who is offered, a job at Cosmic Comics, which is kind of like our catch-all for, probably an independent. It's not a Marvel or a DC, but seemingly has nice offices like them. Mm-hmm. Possibly Image Comics if you want to go Image or Dark Horse or what have you. The point being, you got a big comic job to adapt Mr. Rager into a comic.
Yeah, like I said, up until this point, like Mr. Rager had really been kind of like a persona used on one of his albums. I'm sure that the persona came up in other albums, but like I said, there was a whole album that was kind of like dedicated to the persona.
Yeah.
So, Dragon, I'm always kind of a sucker for when a musical artist kind of takes a concept from their music and kind of fictionalizes it like this. And I think it's really cool that Mr. Rager, I think he represents kind of both the more cynical parts of Scott himself, Kid Cudi, and then also kind of like his feelings on the music industry. Like I feel like there's a lot to read into with this Mr. Rager character that I think.
Sure. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that overall it's interesting. So we have a character who's very vested in the arts with Mr. Rager and like the graffiti art, and then of course the comic industry. This guy is imaginative and he's creative. So we have the creative thing with this guy, and we we play
I mean,
with.
with the Mr. Rager thing, it's almost like he's like a less aloof Banksy in some ways. Like the
Exactly.
character, not Scott himself, but the character.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the big difference between Scott and the character is that, obviously Scott is a musician, and then Jabari is or Jabari.
Jabari.
Sorry, Jabari is Jabari. Jesus. Jabari is more of the graffiti artist, kind of like the visual artist. But I like that the two of them, Scott and then the character are kind of coming at the art, like coming at the concept of Mr. Rager and the concept of what he represents from two different mediums, but from equally artistic points of view.
Yeah. Which, by the way, a part of me thinks he picked the name Jabari because he during the productions at some point probably just really loved Black Panther. That's what I think happened.
Sure.
I don't know. It just feels like Jabari is like a big takeaway from Black Panther. It feels like maybe this crazy. There's like Black Panther was it was a movement when it came out.
It would have been right around the time. You're right.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is like visual, the very just opening image of the movie, and just in general, well, every time we do like Jabari, like when he's dreaming about Mr. Rager, just when he's kind of in a creative zone, the guy is very much, he's a pothead. He's smoking pot 24/7, and
oh yeah, which
that
very
allows
very
for kind of
very common theme on Kid Cudi's music, just in general.
So basically, this allows like kind of for the creative POV shots, and basically
Kid Cudi is almost kind of like the Green Day of rap in a way, with as much as he talks about weed.
Green Day. But yeah, also the Remember, we had like the shot, which I contemplated for the title, by the way. But we had like the Entergalatic, kind of like literally just in letters in the smoke. But I was like, this guy really. It's just the fact that it's like he wakes up in the morning, first thing he does. It's 24.
Oh, he literally Dragon. One of his most popular songs is called "Up, Up and Away," and it's literally just about wake and baking.
It's just, I gotta be honest, like I'm so glad there's not smell-o-vision on this movie because I look at this movie, Jabari must smell terrible throughout this whole movie.
I mean, honestly, this whole movie, just like the marijuana kind of vibes, just like radiate through the screen. Like, I feel like this is one of those movies where just watching it and getting the visual and audio sensations, like it kind of simulates being high rather well. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, let's see. So I guess some points to hit. So we established the friend group. We got Ty and Jimmy. Now Ty is based on
Gimme Jimmy.
Yep, gimme Jimmy. Yeah, so Jimmy's the Timmy Shell's character.
Yes.
And Ty, I believe, is what is it like? Doesn't Kid Cudi have a friend like Dollar Bill or something?
Ty $, I want to say.
Yeah, that guy. Dollar sign.
Yeah, I don't really keep track of like the rap inner circles all that much.
Really, the whole intro to this podcast had me thinking otherwise, but okay.
Dragon, like I said, I keep up with Kendrick, and even Kendrick, I'm a little behind on. I don't even know all the details of the whole Drake thing. And Kid Cudi, I keep up with just because, like I said, I kind of like. There's a little bit of a kindred spirit. Like Kendrick is just a visionary, and Kid Cudi, I feel like kind of a little bit of a kindred spirit with. But yeah, Ty Dolla $ign is Kai.
Okay. All right, let's see. So, I guess the two things that hit here. So Carmen, you got to talk about Carmen.
Yeah, I like how Carmen is like. She's the ex-girlfriend, but like she's coming at it from like I don't necessarily think there's anything like specifically nefarious about her.
No.
I feel like she's, if anything, she's a sympathetic figure here. I like how there's no real actively bad people in this whole story.
Yeah, that's the thing. So Carmen hasn't really done anything necessarily. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, because one could argue later on she is kind of crossing some boundaries, but not maliciously.
It's one of those things where well, yeah, but she did. I mean, she was kind of surprised, like, with the crossing the boundaries thing, like, like Jabari says himself that he's not ready to date, and that's specifically why he doesn't want to get with her. So it stands to reason she's a little bit surprised when she finds out that he is in fact dating someone.
True.
It's like she didn't know.
Exactly. So with that in mind, I love that we have a thing. So again, with Dog Whistle being the first part, it does kind of like suggest that, okay, maybe it's a little shade. Okay, now she's interested in him.
Exactly.
But right after that, though, after one, I want to say this too, Carmen also met him. It's like Carmen, ridiculously attractive woman. Just gonna throw that out there.
Mm-hmm.
But to being an ex and essentially being a friend of the Jabari character, they go for drinks and it ends up kind of escalating, and it's the morning after. It's basically this thing of,
I love how like the attending the family church service is what scares Jabari off.
So that's what I want to hit on, Tiki, is like
Yeah.
that bit right there. I think that's a rather likable kind of like that. That to me, makes it seem okay. There's no real malicious intent there. She just, I mean, look, maybe in a grand scheme there could be a connection there.
But I can also see like Jabari's point of like, okay, like we spent one night together, we get drinks, and now suddenly like your mother is calling me about like, do I have a suit I can wear to the family function? Like, no, like, we got to keep some sort of professionalism here with the breakup thing,
That's true, but at the same time, I think it was rude of him to brush her off and leave the way he did. I understand.
I like how ambiguous it is. I think it is supposed to be ambiguous. Like you get his perspective,
yeah.
But I also think you're supposed to be on her side, like emotionally.
Yeah, that's the thing. Where again, it's like I don't think Jabari is necessarily wrong for saying maybe it's moving a little too fast there. Like the whole like he did just get absolutely roped into that, and she said he didn't have to go. But it's at the same token, though, it does feel like what. You should have stayed, just like spent the morning with her or something. I don't know. It just felt like him like cutting and running after the call was a little. I don't know.
Sure.
Point being, you're right though. It's the fact that we don't. I do like in the grand scheme though. We do see that we have kind of a photography based moment that doesn't quite connect with him. Where later on, he ends up with Meta, who's all about photography. So I think that was kind of a neat little kind of tie between the relationships. And I love that Act One kind of ends with Part One ends with Meadow in the cabin. This is what I'm saying. This ingratiates me. I love Meadow for a variety of reasons. The main reason I love Meadow is I love the actress who plays her, because she's so Jessica Williams plays Meadow, and I love Jessica Williams in the show Shrinking. She's one of the three therapists in the show.
There's like 3 fucking Apple TV Plus shows that I really want to get into. Shrinking is one of them. Severance. And then I guess to a much lesser extent, Ted Lasso. I'd still like to see Ted Lasso, but I know it's off a little bit.
Ted Lasso, it's pleasant.
I'll watch the first 2 seasons, Dragon. I'll do that much.
Hey, look, it's not like 3's the end of the world. It's not. Who cares? It's the last season. All right, it's fine.
3 has committed the worst crime that you could possibly commit as a piece of entertainment. It is mid.
It's like 3 seasons. It's not like Dexter going on for 8 seasons plus. It's just 3 seasons.
Okay, well, like I said, I've heard that fucking latest Dexter spinoff is somehow actually good, so we'll see. I have Paramount Plus for Yellow Jackets. I am tempted.
Okay. The point being, Shrinking, I still love. And she is a highlight in the show. So I was pleasantly surprised. Oh my God, I thought she was familiar. And I looked into it. Oh my God, it is her. But anyway, so I had the cab say, I love it. She's like, the cab driver is like, oh, sorry. And I was like, hey, dude, it's okay. Let's just drive carefully or something along those lines. He was like, let's not be in a rush. It's just something really pleasant, just like the most pleasant exchange with the New York cab. He says, you okay? She's very nice to him. I don't know. He's really liked it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's talk about just I guess vaguely transitioning into Bright Light and White. Basically, I want to talk about the comic side of things. So this was really cool inside baseball kind of stuff. I really appreciated the fact that he's essentially, the idea is this guy's making a spot. It's basically, what if we can get Banksy to do a comic? That's essentially why they got
right.
That's essentially why they sought this guy out.
Banksy would never fucking do a comic, and he would never agree to any of these terms. And so it's like, you get to see someone who's got, maybe like Banksy, as far as like, I think Banksy takes like artistic integrity to the extreme. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like we're not going to see Banksy doing the Carlton dance anytime soon.
Right. Yeah.
See, it's the Carlton Banksy.
Oh man. Took me a minute to put that together. Oh Jesus.
Oh, so we have like that Len guy. So we have like this artist who, again, is not necessary. I think this artist, it's a good litmus test.
Trying really hard to be like a nice boss who's just kind of showing him the perimeters. It's going to be so hard to not call Jabari Scott throughout this. I'm so sorry if I slip up on that. But
I'm just gonna say this, okay? I really think they didn't name him Scott because they wanted something. I don't know. It just feels like they wanted like a more interesting name than just Scott.
I think you might be right, honestly. Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it feels. Maybe Scott's too white a name in a sense. I don't know. It's possible.
But
I don't
that's
know.
one of the. I mean, he has talked about that. Like in his rapping, that is one thing that does come up. Yeah, is the identity of the name. Yeah.
This is Scott the rapper.
Oh God. All right.
But yeah, so Len here again. I think so. Len, I don't think he's his boss. I think he's just a co-worker. Anyway, Len is like showing him the ropes, and I think he's like cautioning him. And this is a thing that you have to imagine. I'm sure Todd McFarlane.
I feel like he's in a little bit of a higher position than him.
Well, the fact he's been there, so compared to Jabbar, he has seniority and he's sliced. That's why I don't know because he's been there. So editor, supervisor.
Just correction in the credits, it does just say co-worker, so you're probably right.
The point being, so Len.
Uh-huh.
So that's it. So it feels like, again, this is like a thing probably like a Todd McFarlane or anyone who's been in the inside, especially like a disenfranchised Marvel artist or writer or whoever, who most likely would have left a starting image or whatever. That's why I'm saying like Marvel with the Todd McFarlane role. You basically would have like the old adage, and I've heard this like in person at like panels and stuff too, where essentially the adage is, there is some disenfranchisement within the industry in terms of anything you create within the series you're working on that belongs to the company. So already there's kind of a disconnect there. You don't get royalties or anything from there. And besides that, it's just this thing of like, the whole, you don't change cosmic comics.
Oh boy.
They brought me in here to bring my own flavor, which, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you kind of cut off on the Cosmic Comics changes you line a little bit.
Yeah, so the point being is you don't change Cosmic Comics changes you. That's the mentality.
Which again, that feels like a lot of such a great bumper sticker kind of phrase of warning for the comic industry in general.
So I was just really man, that feels so accurate right there. So
absolutely,
that is yeah.
And that's the thing is that I feel like this movie, by and large, one of the mission statements is it is from a visual point of view and with the music. And I'm curious to get more into the music with you a little bit. I know you're not a big music guy, but from a visual point of view, it is there are certain sequences and transitions and stuff mostly that are very surreal and kind of marinated in that kind of THC laced flavor of Kid Cudi's music. But also I feel like the realism of this movie, it does very much strive to have like I said, the meet cute isn't some big over the top Hollywood thing. It's more so just a very temporary, slightly awkward interaction that's not really positive or negative, but is enough to cement someone in someone else's mind, so there's these really realistic elements of this movie that kind of build on each other that I really respect.
Yeah, we have bits too, where he calls him fam, and he also the fact is you and me, we get the guys like you and me, we gotta stick there. Guys like you and me, I'm Puerto Rican or something along those lines. It's essentially, it's we're on the outside, we're not the diversity hires, but essentially we're kind of we're kind of we're checking the boxes. Anyway, so also is with the art again. I love just seeing. So many times we visualize. I think one of the best scenes towards the end of the movie was we had this great when we cut between Meadow and Jabari, and we see kind of the lighting where she has the red of the developing room, and on the other side we have him, against burning the midnight oil with the light box, so the blues of the computer screens and light boxes just kind of lighting them. So I love just seeing them just kind of burning midnight oil, working on Mr. Rager. He gives us the dream sequence where we have Keith David voicing Mr. Rager.
Which Keith David is Mr. Rager. I mean, that's one of those things, as soon as I heard the album Mr. Rager, it's just such perfect casting, Dragon. Such perfect casting. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
I gotta be honest, we get Keith David and we have a character named Mr. Rager. Part of me wants this thing of the Eddie Murphy sketch.
Let's also just put on record, this is the second time in a row that Keith David has come in for basically a one-scene wonder role where he's essentially kind of playing like some subversive element of the main character's psyche.
Yep.
Like that's kind of Keith David's specialty, right?
It's a niche, all right. It's a niche.
I love it. I love it.
So part of me is thinking of like the Eddie Murphy sketch from SNL, where imagine it was like just Keith David doing like a Mr. Rogers intro as Mr. Rager.
Oh God. That would be like the even more extreme version of it. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Rager would just be like you know the phrase "burning down the house."
Mm-hmm.
Well, he'd literally just be burning down. The house would be on fire.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I think the funniest Mr. Rager gags too are like more Red Cosmic Comics, like him on the projecting himself onto the background, like shooting himself in the head from, oh, this guy's never going to shut up, or like, oh, I don't like this guy. All right, so I guess we should talk about the meet cute, like not like not just kind of the casual meet cute, but I mean like the real like love at first sight ish.
Yeah. Just them kind of like the initial meetup for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so the 3 a.m. party. So Meadows have essentially.
I mean, I like how like it happens a couple times where they just kind of happen to cross paths with each other.
Yeah. So we're at Meadows' apartment. So they're neighbors, and Meadows' agent, who kind of may or may not have feelings for Reed.
He very much gave me a little bit of a Rory vibe from Beetlejuice.
Sure. So that guy, he's thrown like so basically he's her tie to the weird New York art world, and he's trying to sell her work and stuff.
I really love the character work here, where I don't really think we get a lot of character out of most of these people, but I do think with Meadow, there's that kind of like there's two different sides of her. There's a side of her that like is everything that's like you think of when you think of like a cliche New York artistic type, but then inherently she's also kind of like doing that almost performatively just to make it in her career, and by and large she's almost kind of like the opposite of that when you really get to know her. And I really feel like that kind of like multifaceted kind of like revealing of her character is because I feel like just again, like I'm gonna go ahead and put up our boy Dragon as I talk about this. All right, I'm going to talk about the Black experience through the lens of the whitest men on the internet. All right, you ready? So like, I imagine that when you're that when you're Black, I feel like you probably get pigeonholed as far as personality goes a little bit more than than other people. Like, for example, I think a good example is like on reality TV for a long time. If you were the Black person in a reality TV cast, you were going to be either lazy or angry. Like one of the two. You're going to be lazy or confrontational. It doesn't matter if you're not. You are going to be edited to be that way.
It's like that.
Go ahead.
They usually remind me of a perfect comparison. It's kind of like that scene in Luke Cage season 2, the opener, where he has the fight with Claire, and he points out like the people expect one of two things from Luke Cage. I'm not going to use the exact same language used in this scene, but essentially, you're either going to be kind of the house cat, or you're going to be the angry Black guy.
Exactly. Yes. So like, I do think it's refreshing that like Meadows' character very much is kind of like, characterized at first as like the stereotypical, like kind of like snobbish, like overachiever who's just got her head in her career and nothing else. And then, you really peel back those layers. I think that she's far and away probably the most complex character, with all due respect to Jabari. I mean, I think Jabari's got some stuff going on with him, but again, it's mostly just Scott playing Scott for the most part, But Meadow, I think, is definitely like a great example of like kind of like the it's not just about pigeonholing Black people into movies, It's about actually giving us like fully fleshed out, well-developed characters, like having a Miles Morales instead of just like a Black Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways.
Yes, yeah. So we're she's having this party at at 3 in the morning, and we have this again. We have kind of the hostile encounter, and again unintentional. It's like an awkward encounter between Reed and Jabari, where he's just showing up and he's like thinking he's being hostile. He's just being very reasonable. Like, hey, it's 3 a.m. Turn the music down. And in the midst of this potential altercation, Meadow shows up, and he's kind of charmed by the pretty neighbor.
I really like, and again, it's one of those things where it's like they're both kind of charmed by each other, but at the same time, like like he's trying to hold his ground in the confrontation. He's trying to be like, yo, like music is kind of loud, but at the same time, as soon as he sees her, his guard is taken down quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm also going to say this: Jabari has, his kind of his work-life balance is a little iffy because he and his friends is partying like jerks the night before his first day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
Like seriously, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think it was very rude of them to steal the velvet rope from the bouncer.
Yeah, it's a fun visual though.
Oh yeah, no, it's fun. But that poor bouncer, he's got to chase after him. And they're spinning the rope out of the car. It's like that's just kind of a jerk move, Instead of just like stealing that guy's rope.
But I feel like it's a good example of like how this person is not just like the the stiff-lipped upper crust artistic type. She really does have an edge to her.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, she does indeed. I love with the art thing. I just want to mention this. I wonder if this scene weirded you out as much as I did. Initially, weirded me out, and then I laughed at it when they called attention to it. The vulva chairs. It's the whole vulva themed art party. So here's the thing. So first thing I saw when I saw here's like when I was watching.
Say, as an asexual person, that whole setting made me deeply uncomfortable. Dragon, I will say that much.
Here's the thing. So when I watched it for the first time, when the scene was playing, I saw like. What those chairs? They look a lot like. and then they acknowledged that, like, oh my god, it's like the whole. That's the theme of the part. It's the weird New York art scene. Oh my god, that's really funny. And everyone that we acknowledge, everyone's weirded out by it.
Oh,
God, you know what the funniest thing about those vulva chairs were to me?
What?
Because the fact that, again, when I see those chairs, they look like just the more feminine version of the chairs from that scene in Men in Black.
Oh god!
Where we have like those awesome, just kind of like kind of the wall, kind of like the wall oval, like
iconic pieces of set decoration right there.
Exactly, and I love that scene so much because you remember what was so perfect about that scene, don't you?
What?
It was the fact that the whole test was not remotely what they were feeling. It was literally the whole test in that scene was who's going to be smart enough to pull the desk towards them. Which
that's right. Yeah.
Which still just cracks me up. It's so brilliant. Anyway, just the point being, like the little kind of circular, kind of like egg chairs. I guess with theme to the vulva, I thought was just hilarious and an awesome visual. Anyway, yeah, let's see. So also with the art style, we should talk about kind of our flashback moments. We kind of break the kind of our Spider-Verse art style, and we explore different medium.
I love the anime flashback. I think that was really cool.
I do too. That one was my favorite as well. We see Meadow's friend Karina, voiced by the wonderful one. I love me some Vanessa Hudgens. So there she was. That was her.
But Dragon, she found the magic bead.
Well, no, she didn't go to that party. No kidding. Anyway.
Oh, man.
Anyway, so yes, we have like the meet cute with her and her guy at the Ninja New York.
Oh, God. I do like how there's so many like oddball New York personalities here. We got to point out, because I'm not really sure when we'll get to him, Macaulay Culkin is fucking downtown Pat.
Yep.
Just iconic one scene performance right there.
Also, I could be wrong if this is the exact character that he plays, but I want to say so. Jaden Smith's in this movie, and I think he plays like the kid who doesn't know what ghosting is.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
So, by the way, I love that we called that out too. The whole no, she can't just ghost you. She doesn't know. That's why she keeps calling you. She doesn't know that she's your ex. Give her a call. Yeah. Anyway, Yeah. So like all the kind of the the social graces here and everything is how we. So the Punin chapter is basically that's where we get the anime kind of flashback.
Mhm, mhm.
It's really nice in that we have some genuine kind of I think we artfully do the the love kind of the love making montage there with that. And we're using like
Visually, yes. As far as like the language goes, it's a little it's a little much. I mean, it's fine. I'm not complaining about it, but you know.
right. Well, regardless, I mean that and the whole like the willing to trust song playing, so it kind of ties. So I guess with the music
Yeah, what do you
overall,
think of the music? Just in because, like I said, it's not my favorite Kid Cudi music. Like I prefer his music a little bit more on the punk side of things. This is definitely like the most melodic kind of R&B stuff that he's come out with. But like, I do think he does a really good job with like kind of like surreal kind of soundscapes and stuff like that.
well, I mean, I thought it worked well with the material in terms of the art style because it does
Oh,
the whole R&B kind of melodic, especially if it's a love movie and you have just kind of some kind of some whoopee music, if you will. You'd want some of this.
it is good having sex music, Dragon. It
I'm
is.
just saying, literally with the sequence. I mean, willing to trust. I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty accurate. That's pretty apt for what's going
I
on
would
there.
say that might be like up there with my favorite songs on the album.
I guess overall, I like what he's going for in that it feels like it's going to be maybe not the best comparison, but the only apt one I can think of. It's kind of like the logic of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the mixtape being kind of a love story. Well, I guess overall the awesome mix being kind of the original awesome mix
Oh,
being the love story between Meredith and uh, Meredith and Ego.
sure. Yeah.
So I mean, in that respect, I think that's kind of what Cudi's going for here in terms of its kind of music that would basically play along the love story. So
Yeah, definitely. It's not like the only difference is that the music in this movie is very much not diegetic at
yeah.
all. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I miss yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so again, in terms of our other, so we had this again. The most memorable one, yeah, was the Ninja New York sequence, which again is just kind of about spontaneous, just kind of kind of making a connection, giving into some trust, taking a chance.
Sure.
And on the flip side, we have some other. It's funny that all three of them are examples of again are kind of like kind of Love Actually, or almost like Harry Met Sally, just kind of love testimonials from friends here, where we're getting, I believe, Kai.
A little bit like it's fun stuff, but it's a little bit kind of like where the mini series quality of the original production starts to show itself.
Absolutely, without question, Tiki. Yes.
Yeah.
So we have Kai in the laundry room with the Russian hacker,
Uh-huh. God.
which is just kind of crazy and funny. It feels like a Leon
It
story.
stole all my shit, yo.
It feels honestly both stories they feel especially the Russian hacker feels a lot like kind of like a Leon from Curb Your Enthusiasm story.
Oh, the Russian hacker, absolutely. Especially because we know how much of a sex addict Leon is.
Oh, absolutely. We know. I mean, that was his takeaway from Seinfeld.
Right? Oh God.
Like every week, he's just getting it every week,
Oh,
getting that like cereal by the spoonful. Anyway, so then we so yeah, look at the art styles. Just they're so radically different, and then we get to Downtown Pat's story, which is just very simplistic, and it's a story. And the fact that he just drifts off focus of the story, and she stole everything.
It's great. It's honestly like classic adult Macaulay Culkin in so many ways.
But I love this with Downtown Pat. While the story is just stupid and just pointless, and has no takeaway. At the end of it, though, he does get actually touched by just thinking about, love will break it, man. Love will do that to you. Just like, man, you feel it.
He gets genuinely emotional
I
about it.
love that. That's great that he kind of goes there despite the story and the love story stuff being so freaking stupid.
I mean, I think he's like a highlight of the whole movie, honestly.
It's a one scene wonder for sure.
For sure.
Something about those Culkins. I don't know. One could say they were bred for it.
I'm pretty sure A Real Pain just dropped on Max or something, so
I know some other movies have been dropping lately, so I will have to see.
I'm excited to see your catch up this month.
Yeah, well, again, they've been kind of dropping later in the month, so we're gonna have to see what makes the cut. But we'll
We'll see.
Anyway, So let's see. I'm trying to think. I guess so. Gets the love story. So Meadow and Jabari, in themselves, like the idea, she kind of disturbed her neighbor. She wants to make it right, so they go to this burger place, which we reveal is a vegan burger place.
I
Bum bum
love the
bum.
reveal of it, though. I love the whole buildup of like, do you trust me? Give me two specials.
Yep.
And then just like Jabari's reacting like, these are vegan.
Yeah. So then it escalates to kind of a nice kind of like impromptu date and kind of like walk around New York. So New York very much in their intent was like New York being a character in the movie. Like
Very much
honestly New
so.
York.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like in some ways this is almost kind of like the New York equivalent to La La Land with LA a little bit.
I gotta be honest. Of all the cities, fictional or otherwise, I mean, New York does have that magic to it. New York kind of
Mhm.
has a thing where de facto, I mean, other cities, like for example, Gotham, very much in inspiration from New York, has the same principle where it kind of has to be a character in the story.
Sure, sure.
Has to has like a feel or a vibe or something that kind of shadows the characters or relates to the characters. And I'd say New York is like the ultimate kind of like location for love. One could argue.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it just feels kind of natural. Plus, I think it's the fact. I think what makes New York so romantic and just kind of wonderful is that because it is kind of very kind of labyrinthian in its construction with the alleyways and all. It's like every time you turn a corner,
It
you
almost
kind of
kind of
find a
feels like
surprise.
it almost kind of gives like an anything is possible kind of vibe.
Like in anything is possible, or a non-waterlogged tunnel of love kind of vibe.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, so we find his first graffiti, which is kind of a nice thing. He learns that she's a fan of Mister Rager, so it all
Mhm.
yeah. All right, let's see. So, well, I guess I mean, unless we just want to talk about kind of the whole yellow thumbs up of it all. Do you have anything else you want
Not really. I mean, we can talk about the. Do you, I mean, we can break down like the misunderstanding low of lows of it all
to? Yeah,
because uh I think it's a realistic misunderstanding, and again, I think you and I agree. Like, we appreciate that the X. It's not like she was like maliciously like out to destroy this guy's relationship. Like, she does make a legitimately like valid point of like, I did not know you were in a relationship because literally the last time I talked to you, you actively said you weren't looking for one, and that's why you're not with me. So what gives, like I like that we're actually on her side a little bit there. And I do like the fact that the movie doesn't linger too much on the breakup of it all. It's like we don't even really get like a hard breakup. We more get just like, Meadow kind of saying like, look, we need to like we're moving too fast. I can't talk about this right now. Like I like that we just kind of have like a little bit of pondering, which is realistic. It's I mean, Dragon, I will say, like, I'm at the point now, like it used to be a few years ago where I was just like desperately lonely. Now I'm like, what can you do for me? Like I am not in any rush to get into a relationship right now just because I'm so used to the single lifestyle. So what I'm saying is that it's nice that they're realistically like saying being in a relationship is tough just by and large. There's always going to be some level of trust issues. There's always going to be some level of having to share your life and the sacrifice that comes with that. And I do like that the movie is exploring it, but it's also not dwelling on it.
well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So I love that. With the misunderstanding of it all, I think we play it really funny up top. Just the idea that she made half the bed while I was sleeping. You know how hard that is.
Right,
Like all
right.
like the tail, like all the hilarious. It's almost like a Seinfeld conversation in terms of like the relationship, the signs of the relationship breakdown. The fact, wait, what color was the thumb? It was yellow. It was like, oh no, that's the default. It's now her taking the extra time
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
theme
Exactly,
it.
exactly. That's fun.
So it's like stuff like so that I liked. And then here's the key, the way it broke down to when I watched it. Initially, I was like, oh no. When at the end of like, oh man, things are going great for these two. The creative output's going pretty good for him. He was afraid that would ruin the creative output, and there is a really nice thriving relationship again. I think it's kind of gross, like they're brushing their teeth while swapping with like
that's
marijuana is like those.
just very much Kid Cudi being Kid Cudi. Like
Yeah,
he's smoking a joint as he's brushing his teeth.
God, it's just
That is very
ridiculous.
much a Scott Mescudi vibe for
Kid
sure.
Cudi's kind of gross.
Yeah, I don't even think he would argue with that.
Anyway, my point. Okay,
I mean,
so
I'm quite a big stoner, Dragon. I am not that big of a stoner. I brush my teeth specifically to get the weed smell.
That's my point. Is that it's just like it's the impression I get. Man, the rate he's going, he just must stink 24/7. This is.
I mean, you're not wrong.
It's like what if Pigpen were too happy? That's kind of the idea. Anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is so while things are going great, then the tail end of the chapter, it's we get the text where you're thinking, oh no, has Jabari been unfaithful? And that it's like, oh, because I was about to be really upset with that. Then we reveal at the top, like, okay, it was a rat call.
Basically, I do like that it was a misunderstanding for sure.
I think so. Initially, I was already kind of relieved, and then I was like on the edge of, oh no, it's gonna be one of those misunderstanding plots. And I was half right, but gladly half wrong. And the half wrong was that, okay, so misunderstanding did occur, but Meadow is less bothered by it, just more about maybe we rushed into this, maybe we should be a little separate here. It's like it's basically reminding her of her doubts and that maybe they did move a little too fast. That's fundamentally what it is. So it doesn't make it purely like it's not purely about the issue of what happened. It's more of just like, maybe there were some perils in jumping into things, like head over heels the way we have been. But on the flip side, I'm like screaming to myself, like, when Jabari, when you're making the very genuine confession, you're like, no, look, nothing happened. You should have said she just called me because there was a rat in her apartment. Why can't he say that? Because it just makes me paranoid that it's like offer the complete information, Jabari, just to legitimize it. Just tell her the full truth that there was a rat in her apartment.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway. Let's see. So, point being, it's I like that it was a very realistic kind of. It wasn't even a break. It was just more of like taking time apart kind of a thing. So it's but definitely you're feeling it's a low of lows moment for sure. And that brings us kind of to the ending where we bring in Jabari's sister.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Jabari's sister?
I not a lot, honestly.
Okay, I'm going to say this. I think I don't know if it was her birthday or not because they're just eating cake and just kind of walking in the park. I will say this: I was really bothered by how wasteful Jabari was with that cake.
Oh God!
Seriously, I think they bought like cheesecake.
I mean, not everyone can be Emilio Estevez in the Mighty Ducks Disney Plus show, where he's taking the leftover birthday cake from birthday parties and making that his lunch. Dragon.
Just given how much he is a stoner in this movie, you think he would have finished the full cake because he's eating like 2 of those vegan burgers. You think he would eat the full cake. But seriously, let's think about it. He takes like 2 bites and he throws it away. Throws the full big slice of cake away. That doesn't bother you at all?
Not really. I don't know.
Anyway,
honestly, I can kind of relate to it because cake is delicious, but it's also like very, very not good for you. So like, I'd like to have a little bit of cake, but a lot of times I'm not really inclined to eat the whole slice. Like you get those big slices of chocolate cake from the grocery store. A lot of times I do find kind of struggle to finish them. I'm not going to lie.
I'm a homemade cake kind of guy, so.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, regardless, like you said, I'm mostly joking about the cake. But on the flip side here, the line of the movie, I believe, comes from the sister where she says, love's the easiest thing in the world, but... love is the easiest thing in the world when it's by accident. It's not real until you do it on purpose. So I thought that was great, the whole doing it on purpose. That to me is like this. I love the distillation of just kind of what real love actually is. It's like married love. You got to work on it. It's not just it's easy to fall in love. Just actually, keeping the spark alive. That's where the work comes in.
Sure, absolutely.
That was really.
And I think you're right. I think it is kind of like almost a thesis statement for the whole movie, and just for relationships in general, and how hard they are, and how, kind of like I feel like relationships, it really is kind of like threading a needle almost to get them to actually work.
I guess with the breakdown of just kind of like the inspirations of the movie, the whole like I lost my body and Harry Met Sally, I lost my body's in the execution, but like the line like that's the full Harry Met Sally right there.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, by the way, speaking of which, we did have an homage to When Harry Met Sally during the Punan chapter with the with the lunch.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it was a full night. Yeah, it's kind of a mandate. You kind of have to do that. Which, by the way, recently, I think for the anniversary of Harry Met Sally, they had like Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan recreate that scene with the mayonnaise, like Hellman's mayonnaise. I think that's what the product was. I don't know if you saw it.
I have not seen it. No.
Anyway.
I'm not even gonna lie, Dragon. I haven't actually watched When Harry Met Sally as a movie. Like, I obviously know like the big scene, but that's about it. That's about all I know from pop culture osmosis.
All right.
So,
no, we're not gonna lynch you. Just gonna judge you silently. Anyway, so Karina Meadow, similar scene here. Basically, I guess not as cool a line here, but I think the idea is like, hey, you have to give someone a chance for trust. Like trust goes both ways.
Yeah,
you have to
right.
give a chance to, Yeah. Sorry. I want to mention this too before I forget about it. Just with the sisters line, I love that it was kind of a call out on the Hollywood love story. The fact that it's like we so many times in Hollywood, and this is the constant criticism that romantic movies have, is that it's a very surface level relationship where either nothing goes wrong or it's just very much like, man, they fell in love way too fast, or like they don't have any ugly moments in the relationship, that kind of thing. Where it's like, yeah, it's about striving to make it work.
Sure.
And Jabari's big apology is he defaces McDonald's billboard with Mr. Ranger.
Very Banksy move.
Every time you deface a McDonald's billboard, you make Michael Keaton cry.
Oh, no.
Here's what he does. He just kind of like cries into his big franchise. All right. He's just at a table off to the side looking up, and he's like a single tear drops, and he's like
twitching like franchise.
Just like a depressed franchise, like franchise.
Oh my god, it's like a fucking Pokemon name.
Exactly. It's like what if Psyduck was a manager? But could just put Psyduck in like the button-up shirt.
Oh my god.
Okay. Anyway, so we
got off the rails a little bit. Let's just.
Well, we're about to get to the ending, so I just figured we want to throw that in there anyway. So we have the speech, which I won't lie to you, reminds me of kind of an awesome speech from an episode of a show we're not allowed to talk about.
Oh yeah, please don't bring it up. But yeah,
a show that features Brad Garrett. I can say his name. A show that features Brad Garrett and Doris Roberts. I'll say that much.
All right.
The point being, there was a wedding toast.
Don't even type it in the chat. Don't even risk that much.
There was a show. There was an episode in that show that we cannot name. That was basically a wedding. That was a wedding toast, and basically it's
like the star of that show is like watching our channel 24/7. Like, hey, wait a minute, they mentioned my name.
So anyway, so that guy that you just did the impression of, so that guy basically had this really excellent wedding toast about how the relationship and kind of like life is kind of a series of editing and basically taking these moments in time. And that's essentially kind of the speech that Meadow gives about her love of photography. It's kind of like capturing.
In a lot of ways, that is kind of like also kind of that ties into the final montage as well.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So they reunite in the vegan diner.
Of course.
And we do kind of a nod to Spider-Verse, unintentional. I'd like to think it is a direct nod, just given the art style very heavily, Spider-Verse-esque.
Spider-Verse is a huge influence on this movie, so yeah.
So I have to imagine this bit was maybe a little intentional, maybe a nod where we have, where we have them go hey to each other, kind of like the Miles Morales pickup line.
Sure.
Hey. Oh, something we should mention, because this was like the punchline of the whole movie. I wonder what you thought of it. The stush thing. How'd you feel about stush?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I don't really have strong opinions on it one way or another. I thought it was cute.
I mean, looking back on it, the idea that I thought it was yeah, you're right. It's like kind of a cute moral, like they met each other on their own versus a dating app, and
Yeah, exactly,
in
exactly.
doing so, they saved themselves being part of like $150 million of stolen identity.
I mean, if that's not immoral for you, Dragon, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yep, and Mr. Rager pointing to the icon, Bill Blue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Little Blue says you had Sydney Sweeney in the Harry Met Sally commercial. Does that sound right to you, Dragon?
Yeah, that sounds right. I did not. I wonder if she was the girl who had the big line. I guess so. Like, the whole like I'll have what she's having. Yeah.
Mm. And yes, Little Blue, that show that I'm not going to highlight your comment. I'm not even going to repeat your comment just in case. But
No,
yes, that show.
I'm gonna censor it, Tiki. Here's what we can call it. Okay, everybody loves Chris, or I guess more accurately, everybody hates Chris. That's the show we're
There we
talking about.
go. There we go. All right.
Should we say hates or loves so people kind of vaguely know what it is?
Let's go loves, and then people are like, "Wait a minute, is he talking about everybody hates
No,
Chris, or,
no.
or is it,
Well, we're talking
is
about
it
everybody.
love?"
We're talking about the sensation.
We
You
just
know
call it
the.
everybody loves Scott.
Everybody loves Scott.
And that, folks, is a callback. All right. Anyways,
Okay.
okay. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. So as far as Impact Dragon, I think this is still a relatively underground movie, but I think it is cool in the sense of like this movie is like I feel like one of the movies, along with like something like Mitchell's versus the Machines, that kind of legitimize the Spider-Verse art style outside of just doing it from a superhero lens. And this especially, like, because obviously Mitchell's versus the Machines, different movie from Spider-Verse, but still very much kind of like doing a lot of the action stuff. This movie, I feel like, kind of legitimizes the use of the style in a more kind of adult contemporary kind of lens. And I will say that ever since this movie came out, Kid Cudi's career has been in a much better place, a much more healthy place. He's got a new album. He just had a new album come out last year, which is one of his most critically acclaimed. So yeah, I feel like this was a good kind of career high for him in a way. High because he's always smoking weed, anyways.
Yes, Tiki. That's what does happen.
So yeah, I think just kind of it is a good kind of branch into adult animation. Obviously, this is adult animation that isn't like the fucking Family Guy style of adult animation, and that's always important to have in the animation industry. To remind people that you can do adult storytelling and not just have it be like just cursing and sex the whole time. So yeah, I definitely think I think as time goes on, this movie will prove to be more and more impactful. Like I feel like kind of like it's a slow burn as far as cultural impact goes. Would you say that's accurate?
I would. I think. Guess for my side of it. I mean, look, I was impressed by this. There were hopes that this would get like, well, in their minds, like a season two or a continuation. Doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem like it was really in the cards because that's the thing. Unfortunately, as much as I love that we have a movie like this, really kind of a, I can kind of a series to movie like this, however you want to label it. Unfortunately, as I say, in the audience, every time I keep on, every time we praise these kind of movies, it feels like the audience still isn't quite there. I'm kind of sick of that being the case, but it's like we're inching closer and closer to like kind of something like this being appreciated, or because this is like adult animation in the proper sense of the word, where it's kind of adult and it's kind of like
I think this movie was relatively popular with the letterbox crowd. Again, it's an underground kind of popular, but it's still it was well liked.
yeah. Oh, regardless, I love that we can experiment with movies like this, and I hope one of these days something like this lands. Because I just love the fact that we have a movie where it's a really good romance, and it's it's kind of a again the fact that it's kind of an African American kind of romance that we again just making it even more rare than the kind of stuff that we would see. It's just
Sure.
I don't know, it just feels something something really clicked with this in terms of the execution. Just somebody who's I couldn't give a crap about Kid Cudi, frankly. I don't know anything about him. Until this movie, this kind of opens the door a little for me. It's like, this guy has
Frankly, with the weed shit, I don't think you'd like him very much, honestly.
But I let what I got here, though. Again, the fact is, I don't know this Kid Cudi, or I don't know this Scott. But let me tell you, I don't know this Scott. My Scott's Ant-Man. This Scott, I don't quite know him. But I will say this. I was invested in his love story, so they did something right. I thought the performances are pretty good. More so, I like the execution of the animation. I thought it brought something to the table that I thought was very respectable. It was nice. I thought it was a good watch for kind of what we're doing here.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Big thanks to Little Blue for joining us in the comments. All right, well, that's all for now, folks. Until next time, when we further educate ourselves and learn the world's not simply black or white, but brimming with color as well as character.
On the next installment of Black History Heroes.
Scott.